Christian Parenting.
Parenting podcast. We started talking a little bit before we recorded about the joys of parenting and all the funny stories that come along with kids sneaking into bed in the middle of the night and, the adventures of it all. And
The love, frustration
Yes.
relationship.
how
with
it is wonderful to be the safe place for our kids, but sometimes it would be great if it wasn't at 3 a.m. so we could sleep through the night.
Yeah, or if it wasn't horizontally in between you and
Like an
your
elbow.
husband whoever gets the feet end, it's going to be a rough night.
Yes. Well, I
for
hope
that
everyone
person.
who's listening got a solid night's sleep last night. But as a parenting podcast, I feel like,
'Cause I
I don't
didn't.
know, it's 50-50 for sure. Yes. Well, we are not talking about sleep challenges today, actually. We are talking about waiting for a child, diving a little bit into infertility and the hope that we have in Jesus. But before we do begin with that topic, I want to get to know you a little bit. So tell us about the kids that wake you up in the middle of the night. Tell us about what you do. Give us a little of your story.
Yeah. So my husband and I, we have been married for 17 and a half years. We live in Orange County, California, and we both work as full-time missionaries. We work with a group called the Navigators and Disciple Making Ministry. We have a 6-year-old son named Reggie. He's a junior. So my husband is RJ. So my son is RJ Jr. Reginald James. He's 6 years old, and then my darling Clementine, is 3 years old, and both of them are such a joy and a delight. And if you do the math, we've been married for almost 18 years, and my oldest is 6, so we spent about 11 of our years of being married completely childless with our dog. We had 10 years with our dog, but other than that, no kids. So we waited quite a bit or the Lord actually, he made us wait quite a bit before having our own kids. We went through infertility for a good 7 years.
Tell us a little bit about that story, what it was like to wait, and what kind of led you to talking about waiting for a child.
Yeah. Well, at first I have probably always been more career minded, so wait until I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I went to school to get my degree in marriage and family therapy. I practiced, got all my hours for licensure, 3,000 hours, practicing hours. And so we kind of timed starting to have kids around the time that I would be done accumulating my hours for licensure. Cause I want to get the career down first before, we bring kids into the mix. And then we started trying to have kids, and it turns out it's not just once you start trying, you can have them right away. So we started trying. We tried for a year or two. Then it was this is kind of weird. I feel like maybe it should have happened by now. We were charting temperatures, charting all the fluids and everything like that, and still no baby. So then we started seeking out testing to see if there's anything wrong, and we got the frustrating diagnosis of unexplained infertility, which means we don't know what's wrong. You guys are perfectly healthy. There's no reason why you shouldn't be having babies. It's just unexplained, which I feel like in some cases, I think for me, I would just rather know
100%
happen. Cut your losses now, grieve it, move on, go for a different plan, but I think it's that unexplained infertility of sitting in the unknown, that maybe it will, maybe it won't, that is the most crazy making. But that's also the heat where God meets with us, and we have to turn to him, and we have to rely on him in all things. So then we started pursuing different infertility treatments like IUIs. We did 4 IUIs with all of the meds that make your hormones crazy, and then shots and all that stuff. And after 4 IUIs, still no baby. So at that point, I think we realized, our only chance to have biological children is through IVF, but we're in full-time ministry. I just left my full-time job as a therapist, and I left my benefits, which cover more infertility treatments so God, what do we do? How do we we feel like you are calling us to keep hoping for biological kids, which is always such a struggle, right? It feels like foolishness after 7 years to keep hoping and waiting for biological children. But I really had a sense from the Lord that he was going to give us biological children at some point. And then this is a crazy miraculous story, and I know it is such a gift. It doesn't happen to everybody, but we were praying about what to do. Like, do I go back to being a therapist, making more money? I was speaking at a Navigator event, and we met this man, just the kindest stranger who heard our story. He had such deep compassion on us, and then he gave us
Oh my
$20,000 to do
gosh.
IVF. Which is like,
Wow.
I know, it's like one of those, this happens
Yeah.
in like the news to other people. This doesn't happen to people like me, and so, and yet still, it was still like, just because we're doing IVF, like, it might increase our chances of getting pregnant, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're still going to get pregnant.
Right.
There's so much along the way that could go wrong, like the shots could not work, or I could have no good eggs, or we could have no embryos, or we could have no healthy embryos, or we could have, like, my uterine lining was an issue. Is it thick enough? Does it have that triple fold? Like, there's so many things
Right.
that could go wrong along the way. But God was so gracious to us, and it worked the
Mm.
first and second time with Reggie, then Clementine. It worked by the grace of God. Yeah. So I think going through all those treatments really highlighted for me all of the ways that all the things that could go wrong at any point along the way to having a baby. And just like, what a miracle it is that
Yeah.
anybody's alive. What a miracle it is that we are walking around breathing, that nothing is wrong with most people who we see walking around the earth. Like, it's a miracle. There's so much that could go wrong along the way. Like, how are we existing? God is incredible as creator and sustainer of life to allow us to keep walking around and to
Yeah.
breathe life
I want
into
to know
us.
a little bit about your faith through this process, because I know obviously you're working in ministry. Like,
Mhm.
you're talking as you're sharing your story, you're talking about how God was faithful and how you were in a relationship with him. But like, how did this experience of walking through infertility, of waiting, of testing kind of change your faith?
Mhm.
Either maybe temporarily kind of negative and then positive. And, we all have a story up and down. How did that go?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was in a rough season. When we first started going through infertility treatments, I think I was in a state of denial of
Mm,
how much I wanted kids. I had maybe internalized a lot of these lies about what kids would do. Like, I think when we started having or trying to have kids, it was more, well, I'm about that 30, mid 30, like early 30s age, and it's about time. It was more that than it was like, I really, really, really want kids. And I think that there might be some generational lies around children and what a delight they are and how beloved they are and what a blessing they are, that may have come through my family, where I noticed I would have these like things with these little spats with my husband where it's like, well, I mean, that's easy for you to say. Your career is intact after, we have kids. My life's gonna end after having kids. My body's gonna like go to crap
yeah.
after having kids. All these lies about like everything's gonna end for me. You get to keep having the
Mm.
fun as the guy, which is so silly because he's always been a very invested and engaged partner. Like, where would that come from? So I think through the season of infertility, going in first, kind of in this weird spot of denial and not wanting to have kids, I think God really drew out of my heart, the longer it was,
Mm.
that I do want kids. And so then, where are all of these lies coming from? Where is the lie that the children will ruin everything? My marriage, my body, my career, family. Where's that coming from? And that's when, like, God was able to expose those for what they are, which is just
Yeah.
straight up lies from the enemy, lies from our culture, lies from family of origin, even about
Mhm.
my identity. That's what I carried about me. I ruined my parents' marriage. I
Oh,
ruined my
yeah.
parents, my mom's, but I ruined my mom's career. Because I was born. And so I think God used infertility to draw me closer to, he really used it
Mm.
to break me and to expose all of these lies and lead me into hey, God, I am in this completely broken place. There's nowhere else I can turn but you. Like, if anything is going to happen, it's going to be you. So it was a place of desperation that he
Yeah.
had led
Well,
me
I'm
to.
really glad that we are talking about this today. I feel like when I was younger, newly married, having kids,
Mhm.
like, I think when you're younger, you just don't even realize how much infertility is an issue. Like, when like my friends and I, we
Yeah,
got
my
married
gosh,
young,
yeah.
but like as we were getting married, it never dawned on me that any of my friends would have an issue getting pregnant.
Mhm.
It never dawned on me that I could, or my
Mhm.
family members, my cousins would. Like, I just think it's not something, maybe more
Yeah.
now. I mean, that was a long time ago,
Mhm.
but more now. I think people are talking about it, but
Yeah.
I don't remember my parents talking about infertility. I just don't remember this being that much of a topic,
Mhm.
especially in Christian
Yeah.
circles, because I think it's really easy to
Mhm.
just say, like, oh, well, God's faithful. He's building your family. And those are all fine things
Mhm.
to say, but they're not
Mhm.
overly helpful. So
Yeah.
I think it's so important to talk
Mhm.
about because there are a lot of people who are
Yeah.
waiting to have a child, whether that comes from naturally just
Mhm.
conceiving, infertility treatments to adopting. So, what are some truths? You're talking about the lies
Yeah.
that you believed. Like, what are some truths that you want people to know who are maybe waiting for a baby?
I think that God loves you so much and that He is the
Mm,
God who sees. He was the God who saw the slave girl Hagar, who had been discarded and wrongly sent out by her mistress. He's the God who saw, I mean, she wasn't even an Israelite, and God saw her. Elroy, you are the God who sees me. He sees your pain. He sees where you're at. Oh man. And I think that he's worth
mm,
trusting. And it's maddening at the same time, like and he can take all of our feelings. Like he can take all of our raw emotions. I think sometimes I feel like I need to have a sanitized version of
yeah.
engaging with God, like what I really want to say are all the swears. But like, I feel like since it's before the Lord, I just have to be like, but I trust you, God. And it's good to get to that place, but God can take us in our most raw, upset, vulnerable space. And He
Yeah.
wants that from us. He wants us to
Yeah.
wrestle with
Like a
Him
real
in that way.
authentic relationship. Because, like you said, he can take it. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's what the 7 years did. It just like took away, like, I can't hide behind
Mm,
my career anymore. I can't hide behind, the polished exterior. It's just down to I want something and nothing I am doing is getting it, and so like I can't fake it anymore. God, He didn't let me keep faking. I'm okay, things are fine, it'll happen when it happens. I think He really drew out the pain because he
mm.
wanted to minister to me in the pain and the longing that we hide underneath the other
Yeah,
stuff to
which is so hard
distract
to
us.
see when you're going through it, and we know like God redeems
Mm-hmm.
all that he
Yeah.
allows, but like waiting for that to happen and seeing
Mm-hmm.
his big plan is
Yeah.
not great. It's really not all the time. Sometimes it is, but the waiting is not necessarily great. Um, I kind of want to also address how I actually have like I remember calling one of my friends to tell her that I was pregnant. This is like such a strong memory. I have since apologized to her
Mm-hmm.
because again, I was just naive that I didn't realize people were struggling. But I
Mm-hmm.
called one of my college friends, like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
pregnant. And just completely kind of like, well, we weren't really trying, but it happened and I'm really surprised and just went off on this
Mm-hmm.
whole spiel, not realizing that she had just miscarried and our due dates were supposed to be the exact same.
Oh
And she was like, "You didn't know.
no.
How were you supposed to know? It is okay. Don't feel bad." But I do
Yeah.
think about it
Yeah.
a lot and think I just didn't have that sensitivity in me because I just was not aware. I
Mm.
so many times people
Mm-hmm.
don't. So, what do you think that we can do as
Mm-hmm.
individuals and also as like church communities, Christian communities for people who are waiting on a baby experiencing infertility?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I think, as a friend, I mean, I heard and received so many
Mhm.
pregnancy announcements in the 7 years. And I think number one, don't let my longing stifle your joy. Like I want to be so overjoyed with you. I am so overjoyed with. It's one of those like tensions, the
Yeah.
both and where I am so overjoyed with you and for you and I'm celebrating with you. And it's something that I really really want, And so I think I mean that's the one thing I don't ever want my friends to feel like they need to hide their joy from me or minimize their joy and also recognize that there might be times where it
Mm.
is a little tender for me and
Mhm.
it's not about you and I don't want to take away from you. I remember I was at a baby shower for a friend and I was not expecting this at all, but as her mom was praying over her at the end, I was supposed to close in prayer. I was one of the hostesses, and as her mom was praying over the miracle of this like beautiful life in her, I started crying uncontrollably and I was a wreck because it just hit at this unmet longing in me. It knocked me out off my feet. I was not expecting to be hit like this. So there are those unexpected moments of grief that pop up. And so I think for friends who are ministering to friends who may be going through infertility or miscarriage or infant loss, just like be aware of the tender moments and just be with. You don't need to fix it or minimize your joy. Just be with in the pain and in the longing. So I mean, I felt so bad. I felt like I was like taking away from my friends like joyful first baby shower with my pain, but that it just happened so unexpected. So like I got my sister-in-law to pray instead of me, and I think just the compassion that I felt from the people around me was just so gracious. I feel like I had a covering around me, and then others could minister to my friend who was like the mom who was being celebrated. But I think there is an aspect of also being mindful of what we say, how we engage with those. I don't know how many times I've heard people say like, hey, like, yeah, we got pregnant like so fast. Some people like have trouble getting pregnant, and it's like, it's me. Yep, that's me, And so I think just being mindful, we can just leave it at like, like it's great that you said we weren't expecting it. That's awesome. That's awesome that, and that's okay to share. I just think taking it the step further is like, some people like just can't, you just might have no idea who you're talking to, and if they are someone who is taking a longer time to get pregnant.
Yeah. Just being that mindfulness, I think. And it's such a good reminder because it sounds so simple, but I think sometimes we get awkward and then we just like freeze or do something weird. And we're like, I don't know. Anytime anyone's hurting, even when you're talking about my dad is sick, you're kind of like, now what do I do? So just that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we get weird and then we don't engage.
So just the reminder to be present, I think, is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also, like for my friends who, there were a couple of friends who were also walking through infertility when I got pregnant, and one of them was so gracious to help throw my baby shower. And so I had to back-to-back showers, and she's like, if it's all right, I'm not going to go to the first one. I think it just feels like it's too much for my heart. I'm like, yes, absolutely. Get it. And so like, like give your friends who are walking through this hardship, if you know about it, like the space to kind of get on their 2 feet just in finding out the news. Like I just, I would tell people, or people would tell me in private, or they would tell me over like text or email, just FYI, like, hey, like I am pregnant, or just not around other people so that I could like process it on my own and get on a steady just so I'm not caught off guard in front of everybody and like processing these big things. And
like maybe you don't need to hear the announcement
coming to a place
at
of
girls' brunch with everyone else, like just Well, you kind of talked a little bit or alluded to this, just like how much you are amazed at the miracle of life and how it's so fragile. Like truly, I think we forget how like intimately God like really knits us together. And like there are so many things that have to go perfectly right for life to be created and sustained. And we get the amazing gift of being able to do that. So tell us a little bit about, you wrote a book called You Are My Miracle, kind of talking about this. It's a book for kids. So tell us kind of the message and what you hope for kids and for parents.
Yeah. So the book is written, I mean, it's really just a little sing-songy board book for kids. Like, did you know you're my miracle? You're my dream come true. My baby, I've waited so long for you. And whether it's through just a regular healthy pregnancy, you're still waiting the 9 months to like from when they're like a little chia seed size all the way to like a full blown baby. But especially for those who have waited, so I was at a friend's birthday party, and I think it was kind of a tender birthday. I think that she was struggling at the time with feeling worthy and loved, and like what was her purpose. And then I found out at that birthday party that she was born as a result of an infertility treatment. She's the firstborn. And I was like, oh my gosh, you are your parents' child of promise. Like your parents wanted you so badly and you were their answer to prayer, as the firstborn after years of it. I'm guessing that they went through infertility if they went to infertility treatment. And this was like decades ago before people were talking about infertility treatments. I'm like, they wanted you so bad. And I think that was like the first time that she ever thought like, oh, like my parents really wanted me. They really pursued my life. And like I
Mm.
am an answer to prayer, and I am an answer, like I'm like God's promise to them, a fulfillment of God's promise to my parents. And so I think, I want my kids to know, forever, no, even when they act out or when they feel most unlovable, like you're still my miracle. I still love you. I still waited for you. And this is a good reminder for me too on those days when I get
Yeah.
frustrated, like, like I'm going to pull out my hair. But like, no, I waited so long for the blessing of shepherding these kids and stewarding their strengths, and their raw spaces, and everything. They're a miracle. But I feel like this book is even more so a nod to the parents who have had to walk through hardship and waiting and difficulty to get to the place of holding their babies, whether it's through fostering, adoption, infertility treatments, or just waiting a really, really long time, secondary infertility, whatever it is. Like it's a nod to the parents, even more
Mm-hmm.
so, I feel like, than a feel good, fuzzy book for the kids. Like, yeah. But God long ago had written your story. Now he wove it with mine for the sake of his glory. And just a lot of these pieces of God's intentionality in whether it's adopting or whatever, however God grows our family. It's a celebration of God weaving
Yeah.
together different stories to
I feel
fulfill
like
his
so many
purpose.
children's books are like that. I mean, I think my kids are a little older where I don't read that
Mm-hmm.
many kids' books them anymore, but like I just feel like I read them and
Mm-hmm.
it just brings tears to my eyes because I'm like, I know this is supposed to be for the kids, but
Yeah.
it's so sweet. And as your mom, like I agree, like you're
I
so
know.
special.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's really beautiful because it
Mm-hmm.
does. I mean, those simple words really speak to parents and kids. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we need it broken down in a simple way because we like to overcomplicate things. And so I love that.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
absolutely.
And tell us, kind of getting into the kids part, like why do you think it's so important for our kids to hear time and time again on our good days and our bad days that they are wanted and we're
Mm-hmm.
prayed for?
Yeah. I mean, if we're not telling them, then the world tells them what they're worth. The enemy tells them what they're worth. In the absence of our words and our affirmations
Mm,
and our shepherding, someone else is going to shape their identity and their sense of value and worth. And so I'm like, I want to be the first person, the loudest voice, because Satan is so sneaky. There was this, when I was going through therapy myself, there was this quote that I learned. It was like, children are great observers, but poor
mm,
interpreters. And how many times they're observing the right thing. Like mom is really upset, about this thing, but they can't interpret it's because mommy just had some
yeah,
bad news and she's feeling bad about herself. And it's not about you, buddy. It's not about, like, how many times have I had to be like, mommy just had a really rotten day and mom is not in a good mood,
right.
and you did nothing wrong. I yelled at you for
Yeah,
like no, so yeah, I think if we don't shape their identities, then the world is, Satan is, other voices will.
yeah.
And I want them to know from me and from God just how wanted and loved
That
and
quote's
prayed
really
for they were.
convicting, and I'm going to be thinking about it a lot.
I know, right? I
Yeah, I
know.
don't like that. I don't like it.
Yeah. Mhm. No, no, right.
Kind of just to like wrap up, like what do you hope that this book and your message, like how do you hope that it's going to encourage parents who are waiting, whatever the process that it is? Because like you said, this can be for people who are just waiting for a natural, easy pregnancy that still took 9 months, or people who are going through
Mhm.
infertility or adopting. Like how do you hope that this book encourages people who are waiting to meet their little miracle?
I hope that encourages people to remember that God,
Mm,
that he sees us. I mentioned this earlier. He sees us. He's the God who sees the longings of our heart. We are not forgotten. He is writing a story. He isn't paused in writing history. It
yeah.
feels like a pause sometimes, but he is writing a story. He is forming something in us through our waiting and our suffering. In a way, he's forming something in us that is more precious than gold. And in his time, he will grow our families in one way or another. In one way or another. And it might not be
Mm,
the way that we expect. And there might be grief along with that. But he knows what is good, and he knows what is for our good, and he does what is for his glory. So we can keep trusting in him, verse that I go to all the time, went to all the time in infertility. I still go to it. It's good. It's from Psalm 73. I think it says, "My heart and my flesh may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." Like infertility and miscarriage and all that, like infant loss, it feels like my flesh failed. It is failing. It fails so hard right now. My heart and my flesh, like my hope and my body, it might fail, but God, even when I feel like I have no strength, God is the strength of my heart. And if I have nothing else, like He is my portion forever. And okay, God, let that be enough. And I still want a baby, but yes, God, even if I had nothing, you're my portion.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good verse for this. Solid reminder. Yeah. Hopefully, I know that listeners who are struggling right now will resonate with that and appreciate that. So thank you. Can you tell us where we can connect with you and where we can get your book and all the good stuff?
Yeah, you can get this book wherever you buy your books. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.com is a new one that I heard of that I just recently learned of. And you can connect with me. I am on Facebook, TikTok, not a very frequent TikToker, but Instagram. My handle is at Alice Matagora. And you can also find my website, alicematagora.com.
Perfect. I'll put all that in show notes too, so people can find it. But thank you so much. Awesome. I really appreciate just your vulnerability and sharing and writing this book and just reaching so many who really, really need some hope. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Christian parenting.